inaccurate telenovela of European history. Act 1, Scene 1.
Counteract orchard cherry cough drops, stopping the plague since 4 BC.
Back in the old days, a story as beautiful as itself was born. However, much of that story was lost in history. This is the accurate, inaccurate story of Philip and Richard during the Renaissance time.
It is time for me to be wed.
My beautiful wife, we are now married. Produce me a son. Eleanor, you have not produced a son, but instead 4 daughters.
It is not my fault, but yours. Your seed is not ripe enough for a son, but you know whose is? The King of England.
You dare to insult me. I, the man who is me, the King of France myself, the man chosen by God himself in his entire glory. How dare you? How dare you bring up my enemy, the King of England? How dare you? To me?
And so, what?
Therefore, I do not want you. I have no need for you anymore. Begone thee.
Okay, fine. Bye.
Act 1, Scene 2. Our lovely Queen Eleanor escapes her terrible ex-husband and runs to his arch-nemesis. The King of England becomes her new husband. Oh, Eleanor, my love, thank goodness you left that horrible enemy of mine from France, the King. I love you so much, and I love our newborn as well.
I love our son as well. What a beautiful baby he is. My baby.
I want more. 3 other sons at least. Act 1, Scene 3.
Counteract orchard cherry cough drops, helps kids study better. When your kid has the plague in an upcoming midterm, this cough drop will help them live long enough to take the test. Counteract orchard cherry cough drops, stopping the plague since 4 BC.
Relations build among the young royals, even though the countries were at odds with one another. This leads to a blossoming relationship between the young French and English royal children. They become great friends as they train for upcoming crusades. As time goes on and the children spend more years earning their education, they enjoy the company of one another.
Philip, you are my best friend with a beautiful face. We must sign a treaty so that we may never feud such as our fathers do.
My lovely Richard, we must. But our treaty must be strong enough to overcome our father's hatred. It must be so symbolic, and the whole country must know. We must sign it. Together.
Thus, according to the chronicles written by James B. Thorne, slept together to establish peace, the 2 princes gained soft affection for one another. A relationship stronger and deeper than friendship develops. Indeed, there is hope for a harmonious relationship between the 2 kingdoms in the coming years. Act 2, Scene 1. Tension occurred between the 2 kings, and they began to tell the princes lies about one another. Son, I know we made that treaty with the Prince of England, but they have turned against us, and now we must go to war with them. Richard picks the lint from his toes. Such a disgusting thing to do. The French do not interact with heathens. Meanwhile, in England, Richard, you cannot even breathe the same air as Philip unless you are going to kill him.
Why, Father, he is such a good man.
Because I said so.
No!
The 2 boys have a deep foreboding feeling in their hearts. A thunderous cloud seems to linger above their heads. The tenderness between the boys festers into something ugly, something horrid. The 2 childhood friends who grew up with one another tragically watch as they become kings once their fathers pass. They do not stand by one another supportively as they had planned to do in their youth. Instead, they spit on one another. Therefore, the hatred between the 2 previous kings pass on to the next generation. Act 2, Scene 2. The 2 friends become enemies and meet each other on the battlefield. But wait! They are surprised by the German king, who is both of their enemies.
We must come together to defeat the German king, Jürgen.
For the longest time, these 2 fools have overrun my lands. Not only have you done this, but you neglected me during our youth. Never once was I a third wheel. Never once did you two look at me as something more than dirt. I will not tolerate this any longer. You shall not defeat me, fools. My forces, attack!
The German king runs forward, spear in hand. He attempts to cross the river, but he trips. His knights run over him. Jurgen dies a pathetic death by drowning. Now, only the two kings remain. Richard looks at Philip, who stands with a puffed chest. Their swords point towards the floor. The two kings realize that they have a crusade to lead. Philip argues with Richard and becomes butthurt. Philip leaves Richard for good. Richard must lead the crusade himself, and he succeeds. As Richard returns to his kingdom, he is suddenly ambushed by Jurgen's knights. Richard is dead. Philip hears the news, and he looks onto the sunset. A single tear runs down his porcelain cheek.
We thank Counteract Orchard Cherry Cough Drops for sponsoring this video, stopping the plague since 4 BC. Special thanks to our special guests. The end.